Hey, how's it going? All right, I wanted to talk about the deficit and the debt. And I wanted to show this little clip from MSNBC because they seem to think that they have a little clue. So, first of all, just for those who don't know, the debt is the accumulation of the deficits that we run each year. So, if you run a deficit, that means you spend more than you make. If you make $100,000 a year and you spend $140,000 a year, then that's a deficit, 40,000 each year. Now at the end of 10 years, at 40,000 a year, you've got $400,000 debt. So that's the difference. Okay. Now they're talking about here in this particular clip about how the deficit has gone down, not the debt, the deficit. And I wanted to talk about it, show it, and let's get started.
High function. All right. The deficit is shrinking. It is shrinking at its fastest rate since World War II. Seriously. In April, the government actually ran a budget surplus, which is the opposite of a deficit. That happened again in June. And whether or not you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, that the deficit is shrinking faster than new jeans in a hot dryer right now, the deficit is, in fact, shrinking really fast.
So that's a good thing. Absolutely. The deficit should be shrinking. In fact, there shouldn't be a deficit. You spend what you have. If you don't have it, you don't spend it. That's the way it works. But it seems to me that this particular lady and a lot of the liberals, as they talk about the deficit going down, want to take some sort of credit for it, as if maybe Obama had something to do with it. So let's talk
Which
about it.
means
Let's
that
take
this
a
is
look
the
and
sound of
see.
a politician not telling the truth on television.
Keeping our eye focused on trying to deal with the ultimate problem, which is this growing deficit.
Growing deficit? That is not a thing. The deficit is not growing. It is shrinking. And we learned today that it is shrinking even faster than we previously thought, even at the beginning of the week. The Congressional Budget Office just announced that we are going to have an even smaller deficit this year than they had been forecasting before. So on this show at the beginning of the week, when we previously debunked Eric Cantor for lying about there being a growing deficit, we said that the deficit is now going to be this big. And in fact, when we said that, we were wrong. With today's revised numbers, it's actually slated to be even smaller than we said before. So the deficit is shrinking. That's true. It's just shrinking even more than we said it was. So this is the graph, revised as of today, that you can clip out and laminate and put in your wallet, put up on the fridge.
Okay, well, I'm glad she put this up because now we can talk about it. Obama was elected in '08, and his first budget was in '09. So, prior to that, we were running budget deficits of somewhere around 300, 400,000 a year. Obama came in, and we went from that to about $1.4 trillion. $1.4 trillion in overspending. It means we spent all the money we had that we took in, every penny, and then we went out to China and we printed money and we printed out and borrowed $1.4 trillion. So if you were to stack $100 bills, gee, I don't know, probably make it to the moon in that size. So let's just look at this big deficit, and then it starts coming down. It just a little bit, but it's still way over $1 trillion, way more. And then the next year, it actually went back up a little bit. But then the Republicans get elected. Well, what happened when the Republicans get elected in the House of Representatives? Oh my goodness, look at this. Oh my goodness, look at that. And why was that? Exactly what caused that particular change? What did the Republicans do? Well, the Republicans insisted that we cut spending. And the Democrats were like, we can't cut spending. We need to raise taxes. That's all we can do is raise taxes. So the Republicans put Obama in a tight position and forced him to support a thing that we call the sequester. Basically, what a sequester is it says, look, if the Congress and the Senate and the president can't come together and make a deal that reduces spending by X amount, then we're going to lock in spending cuts at the rate of 10%. That means across the board. So if your program was getting X dollars last year, this year they're going to get a 10% cut in what they were supposed to get this year. The Democrats cried and screamed and called the Republicans mean-spirited because they're cutting this spending. Well, Obama agreed to this thing, and he assumed that the Republicans would cave in on this thing. So as the time got closer and closer, he figured that the Republicans would give in and say, all right, the sequester's a little bit steep, and Republicans like spending on military, so they're not going to want to cut 10% out of the military. But he was wrong. The Republicans stood strong. And he was forced, against his will, to have this sequester happen. And he screamed and cried and threw a little tizzy. And all the Democrats are still throwing tizzies, including MSNBC here, have been throwing a fit about the sequester. But now she's bragging, look, look, and she's saying that the Republicans in the House lied about our deficit because it's shrinking, not growing. But the Democrats can't take any credit for it. They certainly aren't interested in cutting spending. I would like to see one single Democrat support cutting spending as opposed to raising taxes. I mean, I've been around for a long time, and all I've ever heard from Democrats is we need more revenue, more revenue. They don't talk about cutting spending. They just want to keep spending because all the spending that they do is mostly to help them get reelected. That's the problem. See, they're using our money to get their betterment. It's just not right. It's unconstitutional. So anyway, let's continue.
To reference every time somebody tells you that our country has to do something terrible for ourselves as a country because of our out of control growing deficit. The deficit is not growing.
But she refuses to point out the fact that she screamed and cried when we talked about these 10% cuts. The sequester just killed her. She threw a tizzy. And now that we went from $1.4 trillion in overspending down to 606, as if that's some great discount. But yeah, at least we're spending less. But we're still adding to our debt. That means that $606 trillion has been put on the credit card for my kids, for your grandkids, and everybody else that's going to be around long after you're gone. But, Democrats don't care about that because they're not going to be here. They only are concerned about now and getting reelected. And it's a sad state of affairs.
PolitiFact, the terrible, terrible fact-checking website, PolitiFact rated that Eric Cantor statement about him saying the deficit is growing. They looked into that. They rated that statement from him. They noted that he said the deficit's growing when, in fact, the deficit is shrinking.
So this is her whole point on this show, is that Eric Cantor said that it was growing when it's been shrinking. Well, if you were to look at the deficit in comparison to the way it was before Obama took office and compare it to now, it has been growing. It's bigger now than it was when Obama took office. Now, like I said before, if you compare what happened when Obama was in office with all Democrats as opposed to when Obama was in office with Republicans in the House, you'll see that yes, spending has gone down. Only because Obama has been forced. He's been shoved. Believe me, we would be at 1.9 trillion if Obama and the Democrats were still in power. So that's my main point. I just wanted to say, I'm just sick of these left-leaning people taking credit for what the right has done. I mean, the right brings down the deficit, the left takes credit. It's just sick. It makes me sick. Anyway, it was no big deal. I just wanted to talk about that. Good talking to you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.